Semester number one, lesson number 41. Our aim today is why were the late 19th century entrepreneurs considered heroes by some and villains by other? And to start off, I just want you to think about just billionaires and millionaires in general. Do you feel that billionaires, and I use the example Bill Gates, do you think that they're greedy? And I just want you to explain why you think they are or they are not. Today, we're going to continue our discussion on industrialization, and we're going to talk about the businessmen. All right, robber barons or philanthropists, and we're going to talk about what those two things mean in a second. Very important to differentiate between the two. All right, we're going to start out with the concept of greed versus philanthropy. All right, in the 19th century, you have a lot of entrepreneurs. You saw some of them in America, The Story of Us, right? You saw about like Andrew Carnegie, and we're going to talk about him in a second. These were guys who took advantage of the time period. There was a lot of money to be made, and they made millions and millions of dollars at the expense of the American public. All right. They saw an opportunity to make money. This is a capitalist society, as we've been learning about the last few days, and they found something that the people wanted and then people needed, and they made it so that people had to buy from them. All right. They were nicknamed robber barons. All right. And if you look at that concept, that name, robber barons, robber, right? It sounds like they're stealing, but they weren't really stealing. But robber barons were those who gained their wealth by ruthless methods in their dealings with competitors at the expense of the poor or working class. Right? Anything to make the money, and that's really what these robber barons did. They were always focused on the almighty dollar. That was the most important thing. However, many of these robber barons were also, on the other hand, philanthropists. Right? A lot of the money in which they made, they then went ahead and donated to charities and institutions, libraries, hospitals, this, that. And we're going to talk about that today as well. All right, so we have to kind of look at the concept of what is greed, what is philanthropy. Can you be both? Can you be uh, a philanthropist, someone who gives a lot to people and helps out the country or the city that you live in, and at the same time be a robber baron? All right, and this is where we're looking at our aim today: hero versus villain. The first person we're going to talk about, which you guys have already learned a little bit about, is Andrew Carnegie. He controlled the steel industry, all right, and he built numerous public libraries with that money. He helped establish a lot of these public libraries and encouraged the idea of education and furthering people's education. His name is also on Carnegie Hall, if you've heard of Carnegie Hall. He donated to the Tuskegee Institute, an African American organization, which showed his money didn't just go to white people. All right. And his famous writing was The Gospel of Wealth. And he said it was the job of the wealthy to donate money and help make society better for all. So he felt one of his jobs as one of the wealthier people in society was to help out those who were less fortunate and to make sure that they had the bare minimums, the essentials to live. All right. However, on the other hand, his steel industry, right, he had no competitors. He was charging high prices. He was putting other people out of business. So that's something to look at on the other hand. And another perfect example of that is John Rockefeller. All right, his industry, Standard Oil, all right, he was in charge of the oil industry, was very, very lucrative. All right, he um, would, if there were competitors that came in and tried to match him, he would drop his prices very low, knock his competitors out of business, and when they were out of business, he would jack up his prices, right? And in the end, that ends up hurting the consumers. All right, but on the other hand, he donated 10% of his money to the church. He donated a lot of his money to higher education, including $80 million, which was who knows how much at that time. All right, to the University of Chicago. He founded the Rockefeller Institute of Medical Research, and during his lifetime, he donated 550 million in total. In terms of today's money, that's multi billions of dollars. All right, so he was a very charitable man, while at the same time a ruthless businessman. Right? And the last guy we're going to look at is J.P. Morgan. All right. He was a very good corporate finance guy. He was in charge of a lot of financial stuff, and he established a lot of libraries. He donated millions to healthcare. He created numerous hospitals. He improved education in urban areas. But at the same time, you know, in terms of his business practices, he was ruthless. He was all about making money, and if people got in his way, he would ruin them. And the as we look at these three men that we just talked about, the concept becomes, they were very ruthless businessmen. They were always looking to make the almighty dollar. But on the other hand, that money often went to improving the country. So that's a very interesting balance and something I want you to think about as you are developing your student talking points for tomorrow. Keep that in mind how they were. And our check for understanding. One reason John Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and J.P. Morgan were sometimes called robber barons was because they A. robbed from the rich to give to the poor, B. made unnecessarily risky investments, C. used ruthless business tactics against their competitors, or D. stole money from the federal government. And we will go over that answer tomorrow in class. Have a good night.